Welcome once again to your favorite program, Phantastical Careers with Kelli Bertinelli. I'm Kelli Bertinelli, and as you know, I created this show to fulfill my goal of sharing obscure jobs across the universe. Young people need to dream big. There are careers out there in more fields than just the typical farmer, teacher, or starship mechanic. On today's episode, I'll be interviewing a woman dedicated to the excellence of her craft and whose enthusiasm is contagious, wizard historian Florence Galloway. Florence, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, of course. And thank you so much for having me. I just love listening to this show. So to be asked to be on it is oh, you have no idea. It's so great to be here.
I'm particularly looking forward to this episode because while I have a slight familiarity with the backgrounds of some of my guests, I frankly have no previous understanding of what it takes to be a wizard historian. So I did research on a giant list of questions that I'm really excited to ask. But before I dive in, would you mind telling the listeners a little bit about yourself?
All right. So I grew up in the city and went to local primary school. I'm an only child and, enjoyed all the normal activities like climbing trees, catching fireflies, turning mushrooms into bluebirds. Hated anything to do with reading and writing, which, is a necessity for my chosen profession. So my parents find my current job a complete surprise. Oh, I cannot begin to tell you, they genuinely thought I was like the worst wizard in the family because I had even less interest in medical
Mm.
studies. But, then one day I was poking around, probably hiding from the house elf, and ran across a book in my grandfather's library. Cover had this woman with this flowing dress and arresting eyes. And before I knew it, I was immersed in a 19-volume biography of Lady Cassandra Ellsworth. As you know, she's the most important critical figure in the Wizard Treaty of 1245.
I'm afraid that I'm actually unfamiliar with her, but she sounds like a really fascinating individual.
Oh, you won't regret looking her up. She is amazing. Her life is just fantastic. But, that was really the beginning for me. I had no idea that history could be so exciting when all my teachers had just been so dull.
Mm.
By high school, I began turning research papers on the Godless Forest Wars, the formation of the Fellowship, cultural impact to mermaid seagrass farming in the Dark Ages. But I knew I'd have to get higher education if I wanted to publish anything that would be respected in, the academic world.
Oh, I can definitely understand that because as a journalist, there are ways that you can publish and be respected by your peers, and there are ways
Mm.
that you can publish and you just don't get quite much attention. So,
Mhm.
so you decided to continue your education past high school, correct?
Oh, yeah, obviously. So wizards are naturals at research and interviewing subjects and writing down thoughts and everything. After all, that's a big part of our position in society. So university focuses more on translation skills and how to handle unconventional documents without them falling apart.
Mm.
The really brainy wizards are notorious for scribbling ideas on whatever's nearest to hand. If it isn't paper, then we call it a scribble knocker. School library had all kinds of scribble knockers that we had to learn to preserve, like saddlebags, pieces of bread, and I kid you not, cotton balls. That was the hardest part for me,
Wow.
document preservation. Yeah. Language portion, on the other hand, way easier. My grandfather, my mum, and four of my uncles are wizards, so I heard them talking all the time.
You heard them talking what?
The primary wizard languages. Wizards believe that writing down an idea in a language different than the one it was conceived in, purifies the essence of the concept. So if an idea comes from in English, they'll write it down in Latin or Troll or I don't know, Elvish or Dwarven or something. You'll
Mm.
not be taken seriously as a wizard unless you can adequately translate in and out of at least four of the common languages.
Common languages. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So you graduated, you became accredited, and then what was your path after university?
But everyone should always start on what you personally find most interesting.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
right. So for me, that's the Archaeological Wizard Society of Pendleton. They were formed in 1837 and consisted of 9 archaeologists who used their magic to help with difficult excavations. And like that's what that's what I knew I wanted to dig into.
Oh.
Yeah. But most new historians have to start at the bottom. So I helped several wizards assemble their autobiographies, spent a couple years organising a private library in a tower, and then finally got a grant to research and write the complete history of the AWSP.
Is it easy to get a grant? I mean, I'm just asking because that kind of impacts the financial side. And if I had someone who was interested in being a wizard historian, I would just want to assure them that there's financial stability. So, is it easy to get a grant?
As wizard historical books are consistently the second highest selling genre, it's like way simple.
Oh,
I
oh,
I will admit it did take me a bit longer than usual because of my primary sources. Archaeologists were obsessed with a fear that someone would come and take their artifacts before they were finished excavating. So they were really sneaky and they wrote most of their personal journals in like invisible ink on an invisible journal. So, oh my days, it takes so
oh.
much effort to keep invisible long enough to translate more than a few sentences. So it's like really time consuming, but so rewarding. And once I convinced the board of my skill in that area, they gave me the grant.
I don't know anything about your field, but it sounds like there are not very many people who are capable of making invisible things visible and then translating in and out of common languages, but what would be foreign to me. So that is such a new world. Thank you for sharing. As an intergalactic journalist, I'm keenly aware of the complications of sorting through material and trying to pull together facts, like you were saying. So you mentioned 9 members of the Archaeological Wizard Society of Pendleton. So that's 9 different points of view, 9 people, documenting all of the, I'm assuming, tremendous historical finds that they discovered. So what is your philosophical approach to documenting history?
So, like, insiders, I don't think there's any difference between being like a wizard or a human or an elf. Our perspective impacts the way we perceive things.
Mm.
So sometimes we lie intentionally, sometimes we don't have a big enough picture to accurately document something. I don't remember it right now, but Minister of Magic had a great quote on this subject. I'll have to look it up later. Um, Anyway, my job's to examine the primary sources and then like compare them, sort out the nonsense, and then present the information as honestly and factually as possible. So I give the reader the opportunity to decide for themselves what happened.
Mm. Mm. I really appreciate that approach. Next question. I was born without magic, as I'm sure some of our listeners are. So, what would you
Mhm.
say to encourage someone who wants to become a wizard historian but isn't actually a wizard?
Oh, who said you need to be a wizard? It is possible to be a wizard historian without being a
Oh.
wizard. Important thing is your ability to do quality work.
Mm,
You
mm,
may, well, I suppose you might need accommodation in some ways, but you'd be able to read, comprehend, and translate any wizard writings that exist. You just have to be able to discern like true history from leaky cauldron gossip.
mm.
And you don't have to have magic to know what rubbish is. You know what I
True.
mean?
True. In some ways, I feel like our work is really similar. I mean, I'm documenting the present, and you are revealing the past.
Well, yeah, I suppose it is similar, except I won't be done with my book for like 37 years.
Wow, 37 years. Well, this episode is definitely coming to a close well before 37 years. But I wish you the best as you begin to finish, or you finish translating all of those difficult primary sources and complete your book. I'm sure it will be a bestseller when you're done. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Just thank you for making the time to speak with us, Florence.
Oh, absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure being here. And like, it feels really great to be able to teach people about like wizard historians and all the stuff that goes into it. You'd be surprised how many people don't know about this job.
Listeners, thanks for joining us today. Just as Florence has shown her absolute enthusiasm for her job, you should be able to do the same thing. Find a job that you love, even if it takes you 37 years to write a book on the Archaeological Wizard Society of Pendleton. We appreciate you listening, and I'll see you next time on Phantastical Careers with Kelli Bertinelli.